Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is episode 18, chugging right along. This is Rhit Moore, current secretary and past master of Fort Worth 148.
Grant Gates, current Tyler 148.
Gabriel Jagush, Master Mason with 148. And we have a guest tonight.
Hi, brothers. Matt Fisher, current senior deacon, Webb Lodge number 1454, and about to be senior deacon again. So I guess I'm a holdover? Sounds good.
Recycle.
Yep,
Awesome.
Sometimes that's what happens.
So just real quick, I pulled up our stats while we were talking. We broke 4,700 total downloads, and we are in 28 different countries now. Masonry worldwide, baby.
That is incredible.
All right.
The hunger's out there. So if anybody's ever thought about doing a podcast, get it together. I mean, the YouTube videos are out there. You can watch, a couple different YouTube videos, and you'll have it from top to bottom. Minimal investment, and you're ready to rock.
I mean, we don't know what we're doing, so y'all can probably figure it out.
It's real easy. You get in there, you ramble about some stuff you don't know too much about, and I guess people listen to you.
Basically, sit there and look pretty.
Well, it's just a testament to how hungry guys are out there for information, and if nothing else, just to talk about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And have an opportunity for Masonry to be more than just degrees and memory work, which it is.
All right, so a couple questions this time. One of them is right off the bat, very quick. Question I got asked. I ride motorcycles. Can I join the Widow's Sons? Depends on your state, but if you are living in Texas and you are a Mason in Texas, no, not since 2007. So they are considered irregular or clandestine. I can't remember which, but if you see Widow's Sons operating in Texas, they're probably just visiting from another state.
Yeah.
There are a couple of Masonic riding groups that you can join. None of those are the Widow's Sons. So,
correct. That's what I was going to say. If you don't know somebody to ride with, hit up Matt Fisher. He's lodge. I know they do a lot of rides out there. So there's motorcycle riders all over.
Yep. It tends to pair very well with the craft. So I guess the first discussion question that I had would be, what is y'all's advice for those with a really long commute to their lodge?
Listen to podcasts.
Oh,
No.
Perfect.
I got a better one. Listen to the Fort Worth 148 podcast. Just save up your episodes for your monthly commute to lodge, because I travel from my house to my lodge at Webb. I have a 65-mile commute one way. If I leave straight from work, it's 100 miles one way to go from work to my house to my lodge.
Ooh, boy.
Wow.
Ooh, that is rough.
Yeah, there's commitment. So
yeah, and here
that's a
I was
great
going,
idea.
oh man, I don't want to live more than 20 minutes away from lodge. That's a little bit more dedication than I have.
Podcast, that's fantastic. If you can, pick somebody up, give them a ride every time, because I drive 30 minutes to lodge one way, but I ride with my dad, and it's the best part of the night. I mean, we're chatty Cathy the whole way there, especially the way back.
Always the way back. I mean, I go pick my dad up too, and I ride with my dad there and back. And you know what? We drive a lot slower on the way back. We're going the speed limit and everything. It's crazy.
Exactly. No, I know exactly what you mean. I'm going down the back roads 15, 20 miles an hour.
You're just trying to etch out a few more minutes. I don't want to stop this conversation.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know what I'll do sometimes on the way home is, and the way home's a little bit harder than going up there, because we have our lodge starts at 7:30 and then we're out by about 9:30. I'll fellowship for a few minutes with some of the brothers. And then generally what'll happen is one of the brothers will call me on the phone and be like, hey, let's talk about this for a minute. So that'll get me about a good solid 20, 30 minutes. And then the other 20, 30 minutes, it's great. It gives me a chance to kind of tear apart the meeting and give me some stuff to think about. Cause usually I've got something that I have to work on between that meeting and the next meeting. They always seem to be dumping some project in my lap, even though they're like, well, we don't want to overload you too much since you live all the way away from Lodge. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And hey, Matt, can you take care of this? Sure.
That's actually a great idea, because maybe somebody's not on the way. People commute the same time in a different direction. Call them. Yeah. Talk to them on Bluetooth. Can't be texting in Texas anymore, though.
Yeah,
that's
more
true.
texting.
So I don't have a long commute to Lodge, but I do drive quite a bit for work. And I will say, like, anytime, I'm driving and I know someone's available, it's like, oh man, I know this guy gets off at noon, and I can call and talk to him about something esoteric. Dude, you burn time in that car. You there before you know it. Gabe helped me on a pretty nasty commute today. I actually appreciate it, man.
No worries.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do, I don't drive a lot for work, and I don't have a long drive to Lodge, but I often go and visit friends that are way away, we're talking sometimes 4-hour drives, sometimes 9-hour drives, right? And one of the things that I do is burn through ritual while I'm in my head, I drove all the way to New Mexico with my girlfriend, and she works night shift, so she slept in the shotgun seat the entire time. And I I just mouthed. I didn't even, whisper it. I just kind of mouthed the ritual, like, as I was driving along, So
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's no better cure for traffic than your memory work. When you get caught in traffic, open that EA Lodge, close it down, open that fellow crap, just get going. Next thing you know, you're out of traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're not going to go ahead and confer degrees on your car while
Oh, I will. If the traffic's that bad, I guarantee. Well, I mean, today I was driving from Plano, and I'm going to re-up my A-cert this weekend. So I was going through the lectures while I was driving, and it was an hour and 15-minute drive that just didn't seem that long.
You got to do something productive during that time. Otherwise, you're just going to go crazy. So yeah, if you have any of those solutions are great. Memory works great. Calling folks and getting into good discussion, or if you can't talk and drive, I mean, podcasts are a good way to go. I listen to quite a few podcasts, and you can find something that's safe and doable to make that drive a little bit easier.
Going back to, sorry, Grant.
No, I was going to say, or I guess, you could affiliate a lodge just a little closer too, if it's really killing you.
Well, I visited a couple of lodges when I was living out in Corsicana, and I just, obviously I'm an officer in web, and I wanted to keep my spot in the line, so to speak. I wanted to keep going to web because I'd already put 2 years in. I'd done a lot of work there. I'm in charge of the scholarship committee there. And obviously I can do all that work from my house on the computer, but there's just, you grow a certain attachment with your brothers. And I can tell you, just briefly going back, I've been a member of 3 lodges. I'm not a member of all 3 at the same time, but I've had to transfer my membership 3 times. So it's getting to web and finding that that's a place where I feel like I belong and I've got good brothers in there with me. That's what's made me want to keep going to web. And that's the commitment that I have. My wife is the same way. My wife is a member of Eastern Star at web. And so, she stays because she works at Mansfield High School, and Mansfield's right down the road from our lodge. She stays up there, goes to the chapter meetings, and then makes the hour drive home after we're done. But, talking about doing ritual, what's even better is if you have a candidate and that's somebody that you're working with. Like we just raised a brother to Master Mason. Well, the last 2 proficiencies I worked through his proficiencies with him on the phone, driving to lodge. He'll call me after he gets off work. I'll call him as I'm driving up to Lodge, and we'd go through the work.
It's good stuff, man.
Nice. So,
Yep.
Second discussion question I had was, other than the Bible, what has been the most important book to your Masonic experience?
Oh man,
Good
it's
question.
not a Masonic book, but
What book is this?
the one that opened my eyes to what Masonry, like it really, I understood layers to things, was the Kabbalion by the Three Initiates, and it's on PDF. I just printed it offline, but now that I've got my reader, you can just download it and read it. It's fantastic.
That's a pretty good book. It made a difference for sure.
Yeah. I can't think of the name of the other one. All I can remember is it's got Fibonacci on the front. But it talked about Gnostic things and layers in different religions and in Masonry and different stuff. And again, it was just like opened my eyes to how deep Masonry could go.
That is cool. Grant, how about you? Most important book to your Masonic experience other than the Bible?
Other than the Bible, I'm over here still chewing on it. I think the one that really drew me in when Greg was trying to pull me up to the lodge was it Solomon's Builders? I think I read when I was first, thinking about going to lodge. So I would say that one probably drove at least my experience the most. I enjoyed Robert Hurd's book, The Initiatic Experience. It set a lot of tone, and I think that would have been a better first read than the one I did, because that one has some questionable or questioned facts in it. But yeah, I mean, really, those two are the ones that pop to mind. I'm working on the Hiram Key now, and I know that's been debated.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Tips is a good one.
It's pretty good. I've been reading my monitor more and more, so a lot of my reading time's gone that direction. Because there's just, like Rhit says, there's so much in your monitor. It's ridiculous how much information is in there.
Yeah, now we finally got those commentaries you can buy from Grand Lodge. I didn't expect to get that kind of response when I posted it on Facebook.
Oh, people like the commentaries. It's good stuff.
I'm telling you, man, they're hungry for this stuff. That's why I hope that there's another podcast popping up soon, that has its own flair that we get to listen to, because I can't get enough of it myself. I mean, I listen to 3 or 4 different Masonic podcasts as it is, and they are not great, some of them. Some of them are awesome.
Throwing shade. Matt, how about you? Most important book to your Masonic experience that is not the Holy Bible? Or I guess whatever volume of Sacred Law you ascribe to.
It's ironic because actually my Masonic edition Bible is right next to my computer at my desk. So, and I do find myself times sitting there listening to you guys, and y'all will reference something, or I'm listening to something else as I'm working, and I'll quickly, do a quick search. But actually, I just started looking at the thing Rhit just talked about. Doggone it.
Kabbalion?
No. The thing you were talking about, you just got.
Oh, commentaries.
Yes, I just got that. Again, going back to the monitor, going back to certain things, I started pulling out my monitor and reading through certain things. And then I saw the commentaries. And so I made a phone call to my secretary at Webb, and I went over to his house. And for those of y'all who don't know, Brother Jeff Baldwin, he is a fount of Masonic knowledge, actually Masonic and non-Masonic knowledge. And not only did I walk over there and go in there just expecting to hear about the commentaries, he gave me a copy of them to start reading. And then he handed me the Albert Pike's Esoterica, the symbolism of the blue degrees of Freemasonry by De Hoyos.
That's hard to get a hold of.
I've only read a couple of pages because I just got it yesterday. I'm ashamed to admit it, but 4 years as a Mason, I haven't done a whole lot of in-depth study until recently, and it's only because of, I guess, kind of following the advice of more wiser brothers. I started really getting into, started getting into learning more. So I just suddenly just started asking, and more light was given to me.
Also, I would like to warn any brothers that in addition to being a fount of Masonic and non-Masonic knowledge, Brother Jeff Baldwin is also a fount of awful jokes. One of these days, one of his puns is going to kill me. I'm almost certain. Great guy. Man, everybody's been busting out heavy hitters. I was gonna literally every book that has been brought up has been talked about, whether it's the commentaries or the monitor or and somebody mentioned the cipher in the chat, so I can't go for that one. So I'm gonna go with my backpack because that's not a book, but it has a lot of books in it. Those of you who have seen me going to lodge or other appendant bodies know that I have a gray backpack that I keep with me at all times, and that has every ritual book that I can legally carry into the temple in it. And then when I am not on temple premises, it has another book, a little blue book. I leave that one not in the backpack when I go into the building itself. But I've got the monitor, the commentaries, the York Rite for chapter and council, the monitors, chapter and council ritual, commandery ritual, and commandery tactics. And then I've got a couple other things in there, and usually a couple of quote-unquote light reading books. But it's got every book pretty much except the Kybalion and Initiatic Experience is in that backpack with me wherever I go. So... because anytime I'm bored, I can just open up that thing and pick something. So,
and I'll jump back to that for just a second, Gabe. That's actually, you mentioned that since I spend so much time driving back and forth to lodge, I have a lot of books in the car. And no, I'm not saying I read them while I'm driving, because that's illegal and dangerous. But I tend to keep those other like the monitors for York Rite in the truck, and so if I know if I'm going to be getting to lodge early, I've got something to read, or if I know if I'm going to be getting to work early, I've got something to read while I'm waiting for the kids to get there. But other than that, you keep all those materials at hand, and you never know when you're thirsty for a new something different. Like you may be reading the Esoterica, and you get 10, 12 pages in, you're like, okay, let me take a mental minute and read something else so I can kind of digest and figure out what just happened to me.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. It keep it. The problem is when I'm traveling and I stop, I'm typically working. So, I will usually continue to work. Most of my reading, people who know me, gets done in the sauna, and that's where I read because it's quiet and everyone leaves me alone. So
I like that approach.
Yeah.
Right on. So we've had some good discussion. Let's get on to the meat of tonight's episode.
I was just stretching, getting ready for this discussion. It's going to be a good one.
Dues.
Everyone else stretches.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so this episode we are talking about dues and whether or not we need to increase them or decrease them, or what we need to do with them, how we need to approach that. And this was all inspired by a very discussed post we saw on the Texas Freemasons Facebook forum. And so we saw a lot of good ideas in there, and we saw some ideas that we didn't agree with necessarily, but we kind of want to toss some of those ideas around and see what solutions we can present to some of the problems that we have.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that I want to do with this podcast when it comes to dues is that there are lodges out there that there's a good portion of the brothers that believe dues need to be raised. They just don't quite know how to tackle that discussion. So hopefully we can go through bullet points and kind of, how you put together a plan to make that happen. because there is ways, and nobody's excluded. You won't have mass exodus, all those nightmare things. I'm here to tell you it doesn't happen. We're living proof.
Yeah, I think the first thing that putting together, a motion to raise dues is to come to everyone with a written budget of where the money goes and what it's being used for. If you can't operate with a balanced budget, you're not going to have a great time. There's a lot of unnecessary stress that comes with that.
Not only should you have a budget showing where all the money goes and your positive, negative, all that kind of stuff, you should have a projection of where you're going to be, because any secretary can look back at records and say the last 15 years, you can average the amount of brothers that have passed away per year. So then you can put that average in and project out, say 7-8 years where you're going to be. Same thing with guys coming in. So you can say, hey, look, in 8 years, our membership's going to look like this. And if we hold our dues structures like this is what's going to happen. Because a lot of lodges have money in the bank that they can fall back on. May not be a lot, but it's enough to pay, electric and all that. And they just continually dip in it.
Yeah.
And
if you really want to get complicated, you can use Excel and a table of what your members' birth years are and when they joined and life expectancies, and go from there.
And if it seems morbid, take the names out of it. You know what I mean? You're just working with numbers here just to show a point, because it's a fact of life. We all pass away, and you're working in generalities just to show that if you don't do something, then that nest egg you've got is going to be whittled down to this. Or that roof that we need in that 7-year time is going to gobble up the majority of that nest egg.
Yeah, somebody just pointed out to me that it is actuary tables. That is the word. I don't do the fancy technological talk.
There you go.
Yeah, Rhit has a good point though. Take the names out. You don't want to look at the budget and go, well, Jim died this month, so we're not going to make it to January 2018.
So I'll start the first discussion. I don't think your lodge budget should depend on taking out from savings. If your dues aren't high enough to pay the bills, they're not high enough. You got to at least be able to pay to keep the place open and running.
Yeah.
Without dipping into a savings account. So yeah, I'll bite. Yeah.
Well, there's step one. You got to figure out as a lodge before you start, putting all these numbers together, what you want your lodge to do and what you want the lodge to contribute. Because we did that before we raised dues and came up with a number, but we don't put out the donation bucket at the meal. Meals are paid for. We pay enough in dues to bring in speakers, even if we have to fly them in. All that's paid out of our dues. So during the year, nobody's having to come out of the pocket to make this kind of stuff happen. It's just what you do at lodge. You pay it all up front.
And some people really appreciate that. You know what it's going to cost every year.
You got it. And you don't have to do that. You just got to figure out what it is you want your lodge to do. Because we have a family day and a couple other social events, the ladies' night out. All of that's covered by our dues. You may choose to just do a few things a year, include that scholarship, whatever. All that's covered in your dues. So you can give $500, whatever, for scholarship and make that number. You may choose to whittle it down to just bills and taxes. That's each lodge's prerogative, but you got to figure that out first, then build your actuary tables.
Right. And I guess for full disclosure, do we want to disclose where we have our dues set at this point?
I feel like that's fair.
I don't see a problem with it. We're at $1 a day. It's $365 a year.
And that we are aware that some lodges look at that number and think we're crazy. And that's okay. because that's
cool.
may not work for you, but it's kind of what we figured would be the best idea. There are a lot of arguments that get brought up against that.
Sure.
And they're valid because we do things a lot of lodges choose not to do. This was our choice to add in. I mean, Family Day that's coming up where we rent the slides, we spend over $1,000. Collectively, all of us chip in on that in our dues. We figured that up in our actuary tables. Well, I learned something new. I'm going to wear that word
That's
out.
not what the actuary tables are for, Rhit. Actuary tables are for life expectancy.
No, you're incorrect, Gabriel. It is for any sort of money thing. But
statistics, anyways.
Yeah. It's for any sort of numbers. Okay, that's the actuary means number. I'm pretty sure. Brother Billy's going to start typing here. It's going to be hilarious. But
somebody fact check that for us.
Yeah, actuary means number. And no, anyway, we voted on it. We let people know what we were going to do. We gave plenty of advance notice, and built into that is not raising dues on our fixed income guys. Is another thing we factored.
Yeah. So for the guys that some people might say, "Hey, this isn't fair." I'm on fixed income. Well, we have solutions for that. And part of that is that, in private, you go and you talk to the worshipful master, talk to the secretary, and you say, hey, I've been a member of this lodge since before this was a thing, and I'm on a fixed income. Y'all know that. Can we work something out? And we'll work something out.
When it comes to remitting dues for members, that is the lodge's prerogative. They can choose to do as they please. Whether that brother asks for help or not, the lodge can choose to remit the dues. You can do it for every member that didn't pay dues. You can do it for everybody's name that starts with B. You can do it for everybody over the age of 65. You can't have two different dues sets. You have to have one number for your dues set, but the lodge can choose to do whatever. So if they're on fixed income and they can't pay dues, certainly reach out. A lot of them want to pay something just to feel a part of it. Give them a number, the per capita, whatever it may be, and then cover the rest. Make that motion in lodge. It's that simple. You just got to be on the page with everybody.
Can I jump in here for a second, guys? Because sure. I represent the opposite spectrum of this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Matt's here.
Shut.
We've been drowning him out. We've been ping-ponging that.
Oh no, I've been listening, and because I've been curious to kind of hear what's been going on when you guys decide to do this. At Webb, our dues are $95 a year, and actually they're $90. We just upped it $5, and we just went through this. I mean, I'm not even joking, you guys. We just went through this in the April stated meeting. I think was it April? Yeah, it was April, and then or maybe it was May. I don't know. In the last 2 months, we've gone through this, but. We went in with the idea of, okay, we need to cover what the per capita increase is going to be for the next couple of years. So I threw out $10. Let's go up to $100. And then there was actually a squabble, not a fist or anything, but there was a squabble in our lodge about raising dues to $100. And I was sitting here going, okay. And we heard the thing, well, I'm on a fixed income. Well, this, that, and the other. And one brother threw out, well, remember what happened when we raised dues to $120? And somebody also chimed in, well, how much were dues before you raised them? And they said, 50. So they were going to go from 50 to 120.
Yeah, I can see where that might have been kind of jarring.
Yeah, but to go from 90 to 100, and all we're doing is we just want to cover the per capita increase, the $2.50 per capita increase over the next 4 years, to where we still have the same money coming in to cover our bills. Now, Webb is different. Is a lot different from most lodges in that we have an actual 501c10 organization that takes care of our building and takes care of our grounds, and that's Webb Fraternal. So all the money to take care of the lodge, new roof or building improvements, things like that. That all comes out of Webb Fraternal. So the only thing that Webb Lodge pays for is we pay for the electricity bill, we pay for the water bill, and then we have, our obligations to MWSA, MSB, and a few other things that we have to take care of. And the same thing goes for Eastern Star, for Webb Chapter. They pay what they have to pay every month. But other than that, the lights stay on. There's always food in the fridge for stated meeting. Now, yes, we do put the jar out for meals, but that's because that's a fundraiser for our Eastern Star chapter. That's where they get their money and they've done a very good job of building up a small nest egg. So
That's
like
awesome.
You come and you look at our bank account, and yeah, we have a very good, for the size lodge that we are and for how young we are. We're only 26 years old. We have a very good scholarship account and we've worked very hard over the last couple of years to really build that scholarship account. And we do give out scholarships. We just don't give out as much because we want to build it. We want to build that up to where we can basically go, okay, let's take, my goal with scholarships, because I told you I'm in charge of that. My goal is to take and put half of that in an account and let it build, and a CD or an IRA or something that we can just use that to feed the scholarship account, and then continue doing a fall fundraiser for scholarships, and then the rest of the time we can worry about, as you said, the dreaded fundraising for the lodge, for the operations account. But we've fixed a lot of things in the last couple of years to where we're not sweating it. Now, we went through and did our budget for next year because, as y'all know, when this episode comes out, we're going to be getting close to installation season for Blue Lodge. So all the masters should be putting together their budgets for what their lodge balance is going to look like. And we just did that a couple nights ago. And we're sitting here going, oh, crap, are we going to have enough money this year? And then we have to remember, oh, wait, we're carrying over a pretty nice sum of money from the previous 2 years because we have been smart with our money. But there again, when you don't have to worry about fixing a roof, fixing a water leak, changing out light fixtures because they burn out, or replacing the carpet, and we are, don't get me wrong, and most of y'all have been to Webb Lodge. It's not the prettiest lodge on the inside. We know there's some problems. We need some holes patched and things like that, but we're fixing it. We're in the process. It takes time. You don't want to spend all your money and then all of a sudden you go, well, crap, now we got a hole in the roof. What do we do now?
Right.
Yeah, that lodge's got an ambiance, though.
Yeah, it's a really nice lodge.
111 years old. 111 years old that building is.
Oh,
so,
cool.
You kind of talked about the practical benefits of actually spending money and being able to carry over funds, there is an objection that I have seen. It's morally wrong to charge more than the lodge needs in order to run a net zero. Rhit, you had a good take, or you had a good response to that. What was your thought?
After I got over, and realized that that's a real issue for some people, because it just seems so far-fetched to me. That's where I came up with the idea that the lodge needs to decide what is net zero. What does your lodge provide for net zero? Because if you're talking about the lodge shouldn't charge any more in dues than it costs to pay the water, electric, and taxes, you've gone loco. There's no way that could actually work.
Yeah, every budget needs to include saving money. I don't think Grandma put the jar in her fridge and called it the rainy day fund because she thought that it wasn't going to rain. That's why it's called the rainy day fund. It's going to rain. Just don't know when.
You will bust open that cookie jar someday.
You will open the rainy day fund when it rains and you need money to make it stop.
No, I like Matt's story because I don't want anybody to get hung up on what our dues are. We're a young lodge. We, got a young guy. One of our biggest selling points of that is that we were not going to suspend guys who were on fixed incomes. That just wasn't going to happen. Whether through contacting them asking for help or us just making the motion. But Matt's story really shows that I think is where a lot of lodges are, to where you're just trying to raise it a couple bucks to cover that little gap you've either got in your budget or the per capita increase we're experiencing this year. And you've got to have your ducks in a row, because for a lot of these lodges, a $10 jump is a big deal. It took them from 90 to 100.
And but the funny thing is that we went back, and we were at that meeting that I was telling you guys about. We went back and we kind of plugged in what would have happened if we'd raised our dues to $100. We looked at it for 90, 95, and 100. And we went back through at this recent meeting where we were talking about our budget, and we looked to see, would we, right now our budget, we have a little bit of a deficit. But again, I tell you, that's based on just bringing in, starting at the bank accounts at zero. We're only bringing in our dues. We got to make our payment to Grand Lodge for per capita. We got to make our payment to MSB, MWSA, all that stuff. And we were actually going to be operating in a little bit of a deficit. But then we remembered, hey, we have this carryover balance. So then we said, well, what happens if we raise it to 100? And suddenly that deficit almost went away. It's like $100. And you think about, what do you get for $100? Well, we're not going to come and ask you to pass the hat to pay the gas bill, because it went up this month. We had to figure out, we sat down and we had to figure out, because we recently switched over, I think a year ago, we switched over from an all gas heating system with an electric cooling system to a brand new energy efficient air conditioning, electric air and heat. Well, the problem is, again, I told you the building's 111 years old. You go in there in the wintertime and the thermostat reads 55 and you set the thermostat at 75. All three of those electric heat strips are going to fire up. And next thing you know, we had a $600 electricity bill this past winter. Completely blew. But you know what? That's things that other lodges don't think about, or they don't have those issues. I mean, you look at some of these lodges that are in just in Tarrant County alone, and you look at them like, I mean, guys, come on, you guys are at the temple. Y'all have a set amount you pay every month for your bills. It's rent controlled. It's rent controlled. It's controlled by the temple and museum. But going over to Halton Riverside is a perfect example. They're in a younger building. Their building's not as old as ours. So you go in there and it doesn't take as much electricity to heat and cool that place. You go over to Smithfield. It doesn't take that much to heat and cool that place. You go to Arlington 438, which has, that huge building, considering it's in Arlington, and it doesn't take as much to heat and cool that place or turn the lights on. But you come to our building, 111 years old. We got plenty of gaps in the sheetrock. We don't have very much insulation, all things that we're fixing to make our lodge more efficient. But, when you average it out, we're still only paying $200 a month for electricity.
Yeah. And then,
that's not
when
bad.
You do the math, a little bit more dues always helps.
Exactly.
Well, and I'm telling you right now, if you would have taken that piece of paper with $95 dues and $105 dues and showed them the difference, here's where we end up with a shortfall with 95 if we raise it 5. Here's where we end up with a little bit of money in the bank if we raise it to 105. Brothers can't deny the facts. Then you tackle those issues of guys that they're defending outside of lodge that are on fixed incomes. Because like I said, you can't have two different sets of dues, but you can certainly contact these guys that are on fixed incomes and talk to them about what's going on. And if they can contribute, great. If not, somebody needs to make a motion to help them out.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
And as far as, small increases making a big difference, I mean, it's one of those things that you would be surprised at how much of a difference it can make. And I have visited lodges where during the stated meeting, they have discussed the idea of sending out a notice with the secretary's letters, hey guys, we know you're endowed. We're not going to ask 50-year members or whatever, but, we know you're endowed. Could you at least contribute your per capita? I've been to meetings of some lodges where they've had to make that motion. My chapter and council had to make that motion where we said we're asking endowed companions to contribute the per capita because our combined chapter and council dues are $85 a year, which when you subtract the assessments and the temple fees and, charge X and charge Y and charge Z, we're left with $15 per person to work with. That's not a lot. And can you imagine if we went from $85 to $100 a year? It'd be a huge difference. We'd go, we'd have $30 per person to work with. So, some of the times you look at it and it maybe it's an increase of $5. Maybe it's an increase of $15. Either way, it can make a huge difference.
And jumping back to this just for a second, I'm sorry to interrupt whoever I interrupted. I apologize.
Don't interrupt anybody, man.
But we were sitting here talking about it, and I think web is kind of a really good example right now. If you look at our roles, we have 75 registered members on web's roles, which is again 26 years. That's pretty good. We're pretty proud of that. And we've got a fair number of those guys that are plural members or they've transferred their membership like me. I transferred mine in. But then we actually have a pretty good number. I'm saying a good, strong number of original web guys. They are originally from web. And, they were raised there. That's their home lodge. That's Mother Lodge right there. And we were looking at it, but, you have 75 guys on the roster, but only 43 of them are still due paying members, either because the rest of them are endowed, or they are 50-year Masons, or there's a number of reasons, and we could go into all those. That's where I'm glad that I got to be on this episode, because we went through all this. At that meeting 2 meetings ago of the constant fight of, well, if you raise the dues, you're gonna ostracize people. And I sat there and I thought, okay, fine, raise it $95 officially, but everybody in here that can. Drop a Ben on the desk. Drop a Ben on Brother Secretary's desk, and we'll come up with that. We'll come up with the extra money to help you out, okay? And we'll build ourselves that little nest egg that we need, that little savings that we need to do what you guys are doing down there, where y'all raised it to $1 a day, but you have money there to help brothers that can't because they're on a fixed income. I think more lodges need to think like that. I think more lodges need to go to that respect. And you're right. We talked about raising it $5 this year, and then coming back again and voting and raising it $5 again, and slowly raising it up $5, every year to compensate, because per capita is going to go up $2.50 every year from here on until they say enough.
Well, the only issue I see with piecemealing it, $5 a year, $5 a year, $5 a year, is you have to talk about it every
single year. Yes,
you have to have the same conversation. That to me, let's promote some peace and harmony. Let's put the dues conversation away for 3 years. We're going to raise it to this spot. We're going to hold it for a little bit, and kind of see where it puts us at, and continue to grow, and continue to have that little rollover, and then take it and invest it as a lodge under the name of the lodge somewhere that makes a little bit of money, because we've all heard about the endowments not necessarily doing that for us.
Yep.
No.
Rhit, what do they return on a good year?
We got 4.78%. That's the best we've gotten in years.
Now, what is that? What exactly can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Like, endowments are $500 at this point at our lodge, which changed shortly. But so you just get 4.78% of $500, which is right around $25 per member that's endowed for $500. So if you invest your money right in your own endowment, put that money in your own endowment, like we have at our lodge, the nest egg or whatever. One quarter last year, we made 17%. I think the worst quarter we had, we made 8.5%.
Yeah.
And that's a great year. Don't get me wrong, but we've never seen 4%. We've never gotten that low, and we're invested pretty dang conservatively, as lodges should be, since we're long term.
Yeah.
But where do you have it invested?
Well, we have it invested in a company called Thrive It. It's a nonprofit investment company.
Okay.
But what it's invested in, I couldn't tell you. It's a number of different things.
Probably money market mutual accounts. It's not going to be an IRA, but something where, international money markets or, low risk, low yield money markets that are, isolated stateside, something like that. Just depending on how that program's set up. But yeah, it's probably money market accounts.
Well, and the last thing I want anybody to do is to get hung up on what we're doing here at our lodge, because we're extremely lucky. Let me put it that way, because I don't want to be braggadocious. We're right in the middle of a metropolitan area with one of the best buildings, Masonic temples in the country. We play second fiddle to Grand Lodge in Texas, and maybe the Dallas Scottish Rite Temple there, but otherwise we're one of the best in the state and in the nation. So we have a steady flow. We've invested a lot in our website. So where we've raised our dues high and we're going to raise our endowment high, that's not where most lodges sit, because the majority of lodges are country lodges, or like yours, a little newer, to where the big jump we did is not feasible for your lodge.
And that's exactly right. We talked about that. We actually used, and we had a brother from Fort Worth 148 at our meeting that night, and he chimed in. We asked him, so what are your dues? We had another brother from Samar Hamilton over in Grand Prairie. What are your dues? And then of course we have members who are plural at other lodges and ask, well, what are your dues? What are your dues? What are the dues for chapter and council? And you look at the appendant bodies, and like Gabe said earlier, he was talking about what his dues are for chapter and council. I had a discussion with Ricky Cox. What are the dues for Weatherford Commandery, where I'm a member of Commandery at? And you start to sit there and go, are we getting the most return on our money? Because essentially what dues are, in my mind, they've slowly started becoming, is it's an investment. You're investing in the lodge, whether it be the building, whether it be the stated meetings. You're investing in the lodge. That way your lodge can thrive and can grow. There's nothing worse than being a member of a lodge, of a country lodge, and that your dues are just going to make sure that you got enough money in the account to pay the water bill, to pay the gas bill. You get your stated meetings are an hour long, and we'll see you again next month, brothers. And I will tell you, I was a member of a lodge exactly like that when I lived in West Texas. Dues were $60 a year. An endowment was $500. And out there, if you were an endowed member, you did not pay your dues. Now, I will tell you that they got smart and they invested some money, and they had a little savings account. They had a little nest egg. But for the most part, there was always money in the account to pay their bills, because they didn't do anything. There was nothing done. If you were on meal duty, if you were and they didn't have stewards. So if you were on meal duty, you just paid for that out of your pocket. You got what was in the can at the end of the night. So if you paid, $60 for Chicken Express and there was only $40 in the can, well, you only ate $20 that month, rather than, could have been worse. Would have been nice to make it back and break even, but it could have been worse.
Man, no. That does not sound like something that makes you want to go to lodge. I mean, honestly,
it was tough. It was really tough. I was now, don't get me wrong. I had the opportunity to serve to pro tem as a senior deacon over there. So I guess technically I've been senior deacon 3 years now, this coming next year. And, so if I don't know the office by now, I'm in real trouble. But it gave me the opportunity. It gave me another perspective, because, and I'll tell you right now, I was raised in Julian Field Lodge, which met on the other side of the wall from you guys in the temple downtown. Our dues were $85 a year. Okay. Or $80 a year. I can't remember. I paid more as a candidate than I did in my yearly dues. All right. And we had stuff all the time. We had our floor schools, we had our stated meetings, we would occasionally have activities, and we had the occasional candidate come through the door. And then I go out to this little country lodge and I'm paying $60 a year, and I'm only showing up for a stated meeting once a month. I ask, can I get a key to the lodge? Well, why do you want a key to the lodge? So I can come down here and practice with brothers. Oh, we don't do that. I'm like, what? You don't do floor school? No. Why not? We don't have candidates very often.
Oh.
And that was like,
I wonder why.
But yet that lodge hosts a forum and exam every year. And there are many brothers in that lodge that have an A, B, or C certificate. It's like, what? Why?
Look,
And
and any lodge that does these projections or actuary tables, if that's what they mean, any lodge that goes and does their death to bringing in members to see what they need to raise their dues, and then for the next 7 years, they're going to see real quick that if they don't do something, their lodge isn't going to be in business for more than at best 15 years.
and part
I
of
mean,
the
that's if they're
forecasting,
lucky.
part of the forecasting thing, this kind of applies normally to when you have a business that you are starting. For all intents and purposes, I usually consider lodges to be businesses of some kind, or at least they need to be approached as such. So you need to figure out, in terms of initial funding, right? So let's say you already exist. So maybe the idea of initial funding doesn't necessarily apply, but you need to have a nest egg, right? So your nest egg needs to be able to cover a good number of years of, if nobody pays dues for like 5 years, right? The lodge still needs to be there, right?
Yeah, or you don't get a return on endowed members.
Right. And so let's say you have, worst case scenario, your lodge is all endowed members and you don't get a return for 5, 10 years, right? Because that can happen. We've lived in some pretty rough economic times.
It has happened.
Let's say 10 years. You need to figure out what your nest egg is such that you will be there in 10 years. If you spend... So from a zero-sum budget, you want to shoot for spending 80% or less of your income. Any income that you go, 20% or more should go to a nest egg or to a savings or to an investment of some kind that will give you a better return than the endowment, right?
Yes.
But part of your nest egg also needs to cover the possibility of having to close up shop, right? So let's say the day comes and you need to merge with another lodge, or you need to just close the lodge. You need to have enough money in that nest egg in order to make that transition smooth for everyone involved. The last thing you need to do is make it a very traumatic, painful experience because nobody has money to run this event, or nobody has money for the last month that the lodge is still in operation or whatever. Have an exit plan. That's a really kind of grim thing to say, especially since we are talking about lodges and we like the idea of lodges being sort of eternal. But be ready. That's something that can happen. So be ready to be there in 5 years without income. Be ready to be there in 10 years without income, and be ready to close if you need to.
But
you got to remember you're building something. When you set your dues, you're not. The goal needs to be to build your lodge in a manner that it can sustain a drought like that. And so if you're only looking at the next year and you're not looking 10, 15 years down the road, it's one of the first things you're taught when you start riding motorcycles. You will go where you look. If you look at the ground, you will go to the ground. It's the same thing. If you're only looking a year ahead, you're only going to go a year ahead, and that applies to your budget. I mean, at the end of the day, if you figure it just to have enough, well, you're just going to have enough. I mean, that's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but go back to this for a second. There's a very serious, Rhit, you might know this because you have access to the Secretary's database, or you may just know it because you're Rhit. How many, I swear, anybody that sits in the Secretary's desk automatically they have this light shining over them that they are the fount of all knowledge. Man. Yes, exactly. How many lodges do we currently have in Texas?
I think it's 811.
Okay. Like, for example, I tell people I'm from Web 1454, and a lot of people think, oh, man, there's over 1,400 lodges in Texas. And I sit there and go, yeah, if you add up all of the Grand Lodge, lodges, all of the Prince Hall lodges, and all the Clandy lodges that we don't recognize, yes, there are 1,400 lodges in Texas. But And I tell people that, and they're like, well, 1454, that means there's got to be that many. There should be that many, but how many have closed? How many have demised? How many have combined? I mean, Haltom Riverside, prime example. There's I think I think I've heard talk that Southside and Poly are talking about merging.
Hemphill Heights merged with the loss.
Exactly, Hemphill Heights. You have what is it? There's a couple over in Dallas that I keep hearing about too. But you've got to go in knowing you want to build the brotherhood, you want to make it better, but you also have to go in with the serious reality of Webb is doing well right now. But what happens if we have a serious, all of a sudden we suffer a lot of deaths, and those are non-endowed members. So we're not getting any money from them. Suddenly that money that we're quote unquote counting on after you're gone, because let's not forget the whole main purpose of the endowment, at least in my eyes, the endowment was meant to be a way for the lodge to sustain after you were gone.
Bing, bing, bing.
But there's a line on the certificates. I don't know if it's still there. Hopefully it's not. But if it is, it basically, to summarize, it says you do not have to pay dues anymore.
That is correct.
It's on mine.
And as long as that is on the endowment paper, you will have brothers that go and get endowments at all these different lodges, but yet we're still paying on them.
And of course, that's their prerogative. It's Grand Lodge law, but a lodge should set the expectation, because when we raised our dues such a huge amount in so short a time, we left our endowment low for a year to give everybody a chance to, hey, hop on this endowment. But every guy that's bought one so far says, how do I cover what I need to cover that, we pay? How much is that? And how can I pay, to where they weren't done paying dues every year. They were going to contribute something. And a lodge should set that expectation, although you can't require someone to do it. You can ask them, and a lot of lodges do that. I don't know if that's as appropriate. If you're in hard times, you got to do it. But set the expectation. Hey, if you buy this is something you buy, so after you die, it contributes to the lodge, but we still need your help while you're alive. Now, if you get laid off and you're in hard times for a year or two, maybe you don't pay dues. You don't have anything to contribute. And you're still a Mason.
And you know what? Hold on. Let's talk about that for just a second. Sorry, I hate to feel like I'm taking over the show, but I'm taking over the show. Well, no, but it's you're hitting the nail on the head. I think I've heard a number of brothers from all over the district that have and a lot of it's come up lately, after, because, well, let's face it, y'all's podcast has really kind of started getting a lot of brothers looking at going, what's going on at Fort Worth 148? What are they doing? And I mean, I've had that moment where I sat there and thought, I could move my membership over to 148. I could figure out how to pay $1 a day, but think about it, because of the return on the investment, the activities that you guys do. But then I start thinking about, wait a minute. Are they really, and no dogging, love you guys to death, I do, but are they really where I want to be? Or do I want to roll up my sleeves? Do I want to put on my hard hat? And do I want to go to work at my lodge and look at them and go, they're doing some really cool stuff. How can we do that over there?
Exactly.
Well, obviously,
it's one of those things like, it's not meant to attract people necessarily. It's not meant to be like, oh, we're the best. It's, it's for us. And if people get inspired by that, then that's awesome.
But that's what we're shooting for.
But here's the funny thing. Think about this just for a second, guys. Think about this just for a second. As a Master Mason, as a man holding a blue card, a little blue card that says you're a Master Mason of the Grand Lodge of Texas, that is your entry ticket to go to any of the over 800 lodges that we have in the state of Texas.
Yes,
right?
It is.
That means that, granted, I'm not paying to be a member, but should you guys invite me to an activity and I don't have to, and I walk in knowing full well, pulling out my billfold, ready to put my $10 or $20 in to do whatever it is we're doing, and you come up to me, Gabe, and say, no, you're our guest, enjoy. Well, I'm going to insist on wanting to try and pay. And then when you finally shove it back on me, say, no, we got this, broke. Come in and enjoy. Then I'll put my wallet away and I'll come in and I'll enjoy.
Part of that is just the ability to engage in that kind of hospitality. It's really important to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now, the goal shouldn't necessarily be to do that, right? We don't want to just open the doors and wallets to everybody or whatever, but to be able to do that is really important.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Matt made a great point too, because when I was young, I thought people should mimic what we're doing, but it failed miserably. I don't want people to mimic what we're doing. I want them to be inspired, if anything, by what we're doing, to do something unique in their own lodge. So when I go to Web Lodge, I know I'm at Web Lodge, and it's a unique experience. We all do the same work and all that, but we all get our own flair one way or another. That's what I'm looking for.
It's to quote something that I heard that another brother told me, it's a spark. You're needing a spark. To quote one of my brothers, Justin, who, and of course it was Wendell, it was our past Grandmaster's statement. It's planting that seed. It's creating something that people want to be a part of again. It's appealing to the current generation, to get those younger men and some older men. I'm not going to say that we're not going to, we're just, sorry, you must be 30 or younger in order to join our Blue Lodge. No, of course not. Because let's be honest, people that are 50 and over and joining Blue Lodges tend to have some wisdom that we could use. They have years that we don't have. And, it's weird to think about it, but what you're trying to do is yes, it's a brotherhood. It's a business. It's so many different things. Masonry offers so many different things to so many different people. But at the end of the day, there's going to be some money associated with that. Again, I go back to the fact of, and ours is a perfect example, 111-year-old building, a lot of work that we need to do to keep that building up and running, a lot of work a lot of money we have to spend to cool it in the summer, heat it in the winter. But you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to find a way to pay our bills. We're going to find a way to keep the doors open and keep the lights on so that we can have other brothers come. So like you said, when you come and you sit at Webb, you're at Webb. You're not sitting there going, this feels like 148, or this feels like Smithfield, or this feels like, Mansfield 331. We talked about that. There was a point in time where our lodge, they wanted to raise the building and build a metal building, take the church away because it's got its issues. Take the mess hall away or the fellowship hall away and just build a metal building like what you see at Mansfield or like what you see at Burleson or Eugene Green or and do that and go back to that. And, it'd be a lot cheaper for us to take care of. It'd be one building, not two. It wouldn't have to worry about, do we have enough insulation? Do we have this? Do we have that? Because it would be a newer building, thankfully. But here's the thing. How many lodges have historical designations? Right. The history of our building. So now we are entrusted with preserving that building. And you know what? That means we're preserving a piece of history. And now Masonry is tied to preservation of history. And it may be in our little corner of Arlington, but we're going to do it. Yeah.
And just to be clear, nothing against those metal buildings, because any of those lodges you named, you go to them and they are unique. I know, especially Burleson and Mansfield, but that's the key. You've got to find your baseline and what you want to do, because I was having a discussion with a brother the other day about how good we are at fundraising in Freemasonry, but 95% of it goes towards some charitable contribution, which is, fine and dandy. But if your lodge needs the money and you can't afford to raise dues because, say, 85% of your membership is on that fixed income, so it wouldn't do you much good anyway, do those fundraisers that put money in your pocket as a lodge. There's nothing wrong with that.
And how many lodges use, just for example, TMRC Family Day? How many lodges use that as their main fundraiser for the year? I know quite a few do. And
Absolutely.
they do that because it's a one-day thing. You come up with a product, and I mean, you think about it. People that come there, especially Masons, we've got a couple bucks in our wallet that we want to spend on things. Yeah, I mean, we went to Chalk Mountain not too long ago, and a couple brothers bought the Chalk Mountain hat. Now that's a 100-year celebration from 2004. It's now 2017. They still have those hats, but
Yeah.
they still have
making
those.
money.
But they're still right. They're already paid off, so it's a few more bucks in the coffer.
To have, it's just one of those things that like somebody can go to it and I'd be like, hey, like I went to this lodge and I got this swag,
Exactly, because after all, I mean, you think about it, especially new younger Masons. What do we want? We want to outwardly show that we're Masons. We don't want to hide. We're no longer hiding in the shadows. And yes, our buildings may have the entrance on the side street, and yes, our signs may be shot out because kids with BB guns like to shoot signs. But at the same time, we're still there, and we still want to outwardly show that we're Masons.
Yeah.
Without driving like buttholes with Masonic symbols on the back of our trucks, right, Grant?
Right, exactly. Yeah, man, that one drives me crazy. I saw one today.
Yeah, and we are not our great grandfather's generation, which hid masonry in a cigar box at the top of the closet.
And told the kids that they ever touch it, they get a whooping. Like, I mean, our generation, we want to include our families, and we want to do stuff. Like, you want to attract younger guys, do things, do anything, do
Absolutely
things that get them out of the house. And because there's a certain high percentage of our generation that doesn't want to get out of the house. They're like, cool, I got Facebook and the Twitter and MySpace. People
not so much.
But
what, did he say MySpace?
Yeah, he did. He took it back.
MySpace is still a thing. It's more just oriented towards music, though.
It's like, God, that's so early 2000s, Grant. Come on.
Well, yeah, and really, I kind of cut off at some point and just said, no more. I'm not going to the next thing. If this thing dies, I'll be done with it. So,
but and you brought up something really good. You said, I got my Facebook, I got my Twitter, I got my Instagram. And how many lodges are getting out to the point now where they're throwing up that they have events on Facebook? And of course, we are still a spur of the moment. The younger guys are still spur of the moment, and they're sitting there going, what am I going to do tonight? And they pull up the Facebook and they go, oh, holy cow, Hearst has entered an apprentice degree tonight. Well, not do anything. Throw on the lodge polo and go. Or
yes.
We are we're impulsive.
We are. We're extremely impulsive. I mean, how many Master Masons or how many Masons do we have now that they just, like, you're driving by the temple, they're at 1100 Henderson, and you go, I wonder what that's all about. Pull in the parking lot, go in and find out.
Matt, you make a really good point. Like, our generation, like, people talk about attracting young guys, do things, and you know what? Unfortunately, we're in a world that you kind of got to have some green in your pocket to go do something most of the time. So,
what's the average cost of a meal at a lodge? If they put out the kitty jar, what's the average cost? $7 bucks?
$10. I put in at least $10.
Yeah,
I expect.
I've seen some that ask for $5. I've seen some that ask for $10. A lot of them I've seen ask for $7, which is kind of a weird, odd number. So I put in $10. But
yeah,
I think that barring an AMD dinner or like a TO Lodge dinner, you're not going to pay more than like $10 for dinner.
But you think about it, it's like you can sit there and go, okay, I can brown bag my lunch for the next couple of days, save a couple of those tens, and go hit a couple of Masonic functions. You've got guys. I mean, there are guys that I see go to meetings, like you said, $7 on the jar. They'll pull out a 10, and next thing you know, they're making change out of the jar. Or they're making change out of the can. It's like, really? You can't afford to give an extra $3 to a brother?
Well,
I mean,
the way that
really?
I look at it is that a lot of times, a lot of people, if they work an office job, will choose to go out for lunch. Especially if you work downtown, you'll walk over somewhere, you grab lunch or whatever. Going out to lunch is usually going to be $10, maybe more. So if you can say, like you say, If you want to brown bag it one day instead of going out to lunch, that'll make the difference, you know?
Look, and I say you use your best judgment, because don't drop less than $10 in there. But if you go to a Haltom City Riverside John Winch provided meal like last night,
Rib dinner.
Rib dinner with all the trimmings, garlic bread, apple pie. You better drop a 20 in there. You know, that you just had a $40 meal prepared for you. So the lodges depend on it. So just be prepared.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's another way you can help. That's another way the craft can help itself is making sure you have good meals for people. It's the best that you can provide. If the best you can provide is Chicken Express, then so be it.
Oh, you know what? Somebody I wouldn't even complain.
No, but and you know what? I don't.
As long as they have corn nuggets, we're cool.
You know what? You and Barry Bronk at Ennis would get along great, because Barry is currently one of their stewards out there, and that man, when he goes and buys Chicken Express, he buys 3 boxes of corn nuggets.
Yeah,
3 boxes.
You got to dip them in the gravy too, man. Corn nuggets and gravy.
But you know what? It's funny because you know that's what you got into Masonry. You knew there was a financial obligation to be a Mason. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm not. But that's the thing, man. It's there is a little bit of financial obligation, but if you think about it, you going and putting a $10 in the thing, or you going and paying that extra money, or going and pluraling with a lodge that's maybe struggling, like you're like, you know what, I can afford a plural membership with a lodge. My dues will help. You're right. Your dues will help.
Yeah.
But don't roll in there and then buy a $500 endowment and then not help with either paying per capita or paying half.
Yeah.
Or showing up. Like, show up. That's the thing you can do that helps the most, I think, in a lodge that's struggling. Go there.
That's what lodges need more than anything. Even if you do get that endowment and don't pay anymore, if you show up on a regular basis, you've more than covered your per capita. But you know, that's the thing is you got to be honest with yourself. And if you're not getting anything out of that lodge, you know, of course you can exit stage left, or you can put your time and effort into it and build it into something to where people will realize, hey, when the dues conversation comes up, yeah, we need to bump those things up because our lodge is blowing and going.
Yeah, we're spending on things that are more than just paying the bills, and I think, you know, you talk about dues, you're going to catch flack from one side or the other. There's going to be an excuse out there, you know, in discussions, and there'll be people that come from the victim mentality. Anytime you talk about money, there's going to be people that come from a victim mentality, and there's going to be people who come from a outward look mentality. You're going to have one of those two. People are going to be looking forward or looking for an excuse, and hey, it's okay. You know, do what you want to do and run it how you want to run it. But I mean, if you're doing something right and you're bringing in more people, that certainly helps the math to have more people.
So I hate to take it back to the meal, but you know, you guys know me. I can't let the meal go by without saying anything. I've been cooking for too long. Because you had mentioned, you know, I understand every lodge is in a different situation. And if you are in a position to where you have to get Chicken Express, you got to change something. God love it. You know what I mean? There is something magical. That is literally where our lodge began to grow from, was our meal. And I didn't start it. I just carried on the tradition. We had a steward before me that set the bar. Our lodge started from that, because not only does it create conversations at the table between brothers when they're enjoying a good meal together, but I hear all the time brothers going home and talking to their wife about the meal they had at lodge. Where does that discussion go?
Yeah, make her want to come.
Where does that lead down? Because eventually you could be telling her a little bit about Masonry and spreading it in, weaving it into society.
I got a question for you guys. Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys like having breakfast for dinner?
I love breakfast for dinner.
Like, you get, like, for some reason, it's like, you talk about dinner, you think about, chicken, or you think about some kind of fish, or you think about some kind of a protein, right? But then every once in a while, it's nice to just kind of throw in and have an omelet, or have some pancakes, or have a waffle, everything like that. I'm going to tell you, right?
Benedict.
Well, if you want to rock it, the Eggs Benedict, go on there, Benedict Arnold. Go on.
I know where he's going with this. I've been to Web Lodge on breakfast dinner night.
And I'm going to tell you right now, when we advertise that we're doing breakfast for dinner, we have more visiting brothers show up, to the point where we've had to ask Eastern Star to do breakfast more often. And you know what? Our Eastern Star ladies, they're fine with it. It takes a little bit more prep time, especially when you got to prep bacon, prep sausage, everything else like that, because they prep cook it rather than, risk not having it ready when we start our meal at 6:00. And I can speak from this because my wife is the head of Feed the Masons for Eastern Star. So trust me, I get asked quite often, what do you guys want for dinner this month, kind of thing. And then she has to get it all together. But, we go out of our way when we advertise that we're having breakfast for dinner at the lodge and brothers show up. I mean, you walk in, you're getting eggs cooked to order. You're getting fresh made sausage, fresh made bacon. We're not back there squeezing the orange juice fresh, but we put out a good meal for breakfast for dinner. And the brothers that come in there, you see them going, and I'm not just talking about us, but us web boys will go back for seconds and thirds, especially if there's a full thing of bacon still on the counter.
Nice.
I've
got to go to that sometime.
Well,
it's epic.
Tell you what. Hey, just want to let you guys know, throwing it out there right now. Stated meeting coming up this month, third Tuesday, is breakfast for dinner.
Third Tuesday, what's the date?
Oh, boy.
No.
Third Tuesday this month is the 20th. The 20th, 6:00, 7,000 Ziffelt. Look us up on weblodge.org.
So because we had mentioned fundraising for lodges, to bring it on back.
Sorry.
since I'm Debbie Downer. No, I could talk breakfast all night. But we talked about doing fundraisers for lodge for your bank account. This money's going to be raised for your lodge. Make sure you do not do a raffle for that. There's legislation that they're guided by. You can even Google it and find out, but it's got to go towards education, scholarships, science. There's a couple of different things that can go to first responders if you do the raffle. Otherwise, if you do the fish fry, the cliche pancake breakfast fish fry, that money can go in your pocket. But there's a lot of different things you can do to raise money. We talked about going to Masonic Con
Yep.
at one point, and Greg and I had been kicking around the ideas of doing little fundraisers throughout the year to offset the cost, like doing a fantasy league with your brothers and your friends. Everybody chips in $50 knowing you're not going to win it. It all goes into the pot to go to the Masonicon or whatever you choose.
You know what? And I'm just going to throw this out there just as a thought. And this is what I do when I hear awesome ideas. But why not try to put together a group from the 64th district and be like, kind of pull it together and have some larger scale fundraisers for something like that. That way you can,
there's your washer tournament.
Yeah. There's
simple
washer tournament. Have a big, set up a bunch of cornhole setups. I remember when those were called beanbag toss, by the way. I never knew they were called cornhole. That was a bit of a shocker.
I'm old school. I toss washers.
Well, yeah, washers. But I mean, there's so many things that can be done.
It's absolutely, and especially for us in the 64th district, we have resources. Say we put together, horseshoe tournament, washer, Aggie horseshoe, whatever we put together, and it got really big. We've got the TMRC. Maybe we kick them a little money, but it's so big, we're making plenty to have the space because we know it's out there. And
it's right there on 180, dude. It's right there on Division E2.
The ideas are limitless, and that's the thing that young guys, the guys that are active, that know like dues need to be raised, this needs to be done, this needs to be changed in lodge or revamped, not to use the word change. Take control. It's your lodge. Although those guys have been there 50 years or maybe a little less, they want what's best for the lodge. You just have to prove it to them. Maybe take some time. Maybe it takes some legwork. Get it done because, I mean, it's worth it. I mean, one of the best things in my life right now is my lodge. I love Masonry. You know, I really like it, but I love my lodge.
Now,
it flips my wig.
Here's the thing, though. Now, I've got to ask this. Now, coming at it from a different standpoint, I love being a member of Web 2. I look fondly, not to drag it down, but you know, as you guys are aware, because I saw 2 out of 3 of y'all there, you know, at Paul's funeral recently when we had to bury a past master. You know, I looked at the show of force, and I thought back to some of the stuff that Paul taught me, because Paul was my teacher coming up. When I went through the degrees, he was my instructor. And I remember many a time sitting there and talking about different ways to fundraise and different ways to do this and this and this and that and the other. But it always came back to, you know, you love every brother in your lodge and you love being around them, but you end up having that core group of guys that you know you can always go to, and you're going to sit down and you're going to have that conversation. And we were sitting there, there's a group of us in Web that are like that. We were sitting down having a conversation and realized every time we do something, we're always sitting right next to each other. Every time we're always going, you know, we're going to degrees with each other. We're doing this and that and everything. And it started dawning on me, it's like high school all over again. We're in a little clique.
It's not a clique. Don't use that word.
But
it's brotherhood.
It is.
But if you think about it, but you go, like, for example, here's a great example. We went to 438's Master Mason degree, whenever that was, last week or something. And I realized when I sat down for dinner, I'm at a table with nothing but Web guys. I'm in there with 438 and a whole bunch of other brothers, and yet I'm sitting at a table with brothers from my lodge.
Now, it's nice to have somebody that you're comfortable with, though. You know, for me, you know, it doesn't seem like it to a lot of people that know me. But I'm actually I have a hard time getting to know people and hanging out with people that I haven't met yet. I don't know that I would say I'm shy, but it's a lot easier for me to hang out with people that I already know. So some people do need that support group, but if you don't, yeah, you're right. There should be a lot of mingling.
You're a social introvert. You want to be around people, but you don't necessarily want them around you.
But you know what's funny? I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go the opposite on this one for a second. Gabe, when you came out to the outdoor degree this year, when you came out to the Web outdoor degree, and you want to talk about brotherhood and things like that, I mean, granted, we didn't have the numbers that we had the year before when Harmony did it out there. But, I mean, my gosh, being able to sit out there in under God's canopy. You know, you have the grand architect of the universe. Yeah, it was hot. Yeah, it was sunny. There was no breeze really to speak of. And when it was, you couldn't hear anything. But, you know, that's an experience that your dues paid for that.
Yes.
To bring it all back, your dues paid for that opportunity for you to know, hey, we're having an outdoor degree. Hey, I should go to that. And then you're sitting there and you're looking at Ricky Cox sitting on a horse playing on his cell phone. And you're sitting there talking to James Jones, and you're watching a brother being raised by the Knights of Mecca. And you look across the way, you've got brothers from Tannehill. You've got brothers from all over the Metroplex that are out there. Brothers from Harmony that came out to support.
And that's not something you can do without having the funds, you know?
Right. The value of what you get out of it. Some guys are like, well, we need to keep our lodge dues low because we just need to pay the bills because all I'm going to do is show up to my stated meeting. That's great. I'm glad you just want to show up to your stated meeting. But you know what? Unfortunately, Encore says rates are going up. Sorry, bud. We gotta pay the bills and things like that. But it's going past that. Would I love to someday be able to have our lodge dues at Web to where we don't have to pay for meals anymore? Fantastic. That'd be awesome. But then that means we're still cutting a check to Eastern Star because they're still cooking the food.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to find your spot where, you know, how things are going to work, because there is nothing wrong with having that jar out. I think that's a great thing for a lodge to do to keep their dues low. But you got to keep in mind too that this doesn't have to be a unanimous vote. Things in lodge can be controversial. That's just fine. That's what we do in there. It's set up in a way for good discourse, for real rhetoric to happen in there, where everybody can hear everybody. We can speak to everybody. So if dues need to be raised and there's an old guy over there saying no, that I'm going to do this and just show up for stated meeting, you know, I'm sorry to say he might have to be outvoted if he can't be convinced. Try your earnestest to get him convinced. Do everything you can. And if all else fails, you got to outvote him. But when he doesn't pay dues, if he's old enough and on fixed income, with air quotes, take care of him. That's what we do.
Also, one of the great comments that I saw from the whole thread was, I'm also on fixed income. It's called salary.
Hey, let's talk about that for just a second.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to say, I don't remember the name of the brother that said that, but you know who you are if you are listening. So,
and it was funny.
But and that's the thing, though. I'm a teacher, and there's a reason why there are not a whole lot of teachers that are Masons anymore, is because the world has the cost of the world has gone up, but the teacher's salary has not increased. That doesn't stop me. Now, yeah, I make a little bit more than the average teacher does because I'm a band director. I get a little bit extra money because I have a lot of extra work that I do. Not saying other teachers don't. Don't get me wrong. And my teacher friends that are Masons, don't start flaming me on Facebook. But I'm just telling you, it's a brother pointed out that it's fixed income it's hard when you're making a little bit of money. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? You get a return for your investment. You get something out of it. And I'm not saying you get what you put into it. I'm just saying I put in money and I've gotten my return on my money. I pay my $95 dues. I've gotten a return on my $95 dues. Matter of fact, I've probably gotten more than my return on my $95 dues.
And that's the thing, is that if you don't think that you are, especially here in our county, go find a lodge to where the dues are set, because it'll go all the way from the minimum dues on up to what we charge. But if you're not getting the value for what you're putting in it, you got to go somewhere else. Really and truly, if you feel like you can't fix anything, you're outnumbered, vamonos.
But you know what? Don't give up early. Like if you bring up dues one time and you get voted down, the lodge says, okay, I'm not going to do it. Then you got to go back and reevaluate and go, what can I do differently to sway some more votes my way? Because you're right, Rhit. You just need a majority. That's all you need. You need 51% of what's in the room.
Absolutely. And if your first thought is, after you have a little controversy, is to hook them and leave, you weren't really a Mason at heart in the first place, because we should love that controversy. That's a good man getting better. But there does come a point to where you realize you're beating your head on a wall, and there are lodges out there, and that's just fine and dandy. They're just fine with it just kind of skidding into the dirt real nice and easy. And you may have to go somewhere else. But you're already going to be practiced in the arts of how to deal with controversy from that lodge, because you've tried to prove to everybody where things need to be going. And if they fought you tooth and nail, you got nowhere, move on.
All right. So the talk about dues can be really painful. We've kind of talked about voting over people and things like that. How do we present the proposal for a dues increase in a palatable manner?
First of all, when that comes up at a stated meeting, everybody there, barring somebody that showed up out of the blue, should know about it. Even notify your members by mail or whatever, just to let everybody know. But that should be discussed. That should be discussed well beforehand. So when it's done at stated meeting, it's all already wrapped up, because you have your projections, you have the future projections, you have the budget, you have all those things in place to where you can show here's where the rubber meets the road.
Have handouts. Yeah, if you have a budget together, hand out the budget. Yeah, but, the problem with PowerPoint is people just read the slides.
Yeah, well, if you make pretty graphs, that will. And I'm,
I thought
this is something that true.
This is something that in my career I've had to do a lot. Sometimes you put up a pretty pie chart. Hey guys, these are expenses. Put up a line graph. Hey guys, this is what our net funds look like as time passes. Things like that.
Yeah. You want to blow their wig, do a PowerPoint. Get in there and set up the projector or TV if you have one. Throw a PowerPoint at them.
You know
Man, I
what
could go
though?
on 10 minutes about PowerPoint. And you just don't get me started. I'm not
But
a fan. We'll just
but hey, but hold on. But Grant, there's something to be said about PowerPoints though, or there's something to be said about putting something in the hands of somebody that they can actually look at. Like if you can sit there and go, you know what, brothers, I've gone back and I've tracked our increase in our utilities, or I've gone back and I've tracked this, I've tracked that, and I've shown, and I can show you where your money is going, and then I can show you what my intentions are by raising the dues. Anybody who has put that much thought into it is going to be able to get the vote. I believe is going to be able to get the vote. Yes, you're going to have some guys that are going to be like, well, I don't care how much you make sense of it. I'm not voting for it. And you know what? That's fine. It goes back to you need 51% of the vote in order to increase the dues.
Look, and pad that thing.
Yeah.
Like in any negotiation, you got to pad it. You have things you're ready to give up. It would be great if you got them, but try to keep peace and harmony with everybody, because a majority is great, but it doesn't have to be that way. But say someone says that's too high. Well, I'll give up that thing we got in there for $1,200 out of the budget. Sounds good. Now they won. Negotiations over. Dues are raised.
But you got to think about it. And this is where we kind of ran into a little bit of a problem where I had a little bit of trouble understanding. You know, if you have a separate account that you take care of your scholarships out of, does that really need to be in your budget for your ops? Because that's a separate account, that's separate money, and you fund that separately. So really, as long as you have set fundraisers that you do every year or every 6 months to feed the scholarship account is separate. It's its own living, breathing entity.
That is true, with the exception of if you do raffles, you can't intermingle the money.
Right.
If you raise it other means, you could technically.
But if you don't,
like, be careful.
Like, for example, our motorcycle rally that we just did, and it's going to turn, and by the way, that's turning into a full out motorcycle car, Sherman tank kind of rally. You know, if it's got wheels on it and it'll roll down the road, bring it and we'll go. We had a guy out there on one of those, Polaris slingshots, man. That thing was awesome. I'm going to tell you right now, if I had $26,000, yeah, that'd be in my garage. Just kidding. No, it wouldn't. But you know, it's like that money that we raise for that goes into our ops account. You know, we thought, well, this can go into our scholarship. This can go into our scholarship account. Well, yeah, it could. And we can put a few bucks in the scholarship account, but the scholarship account is doing really, really well right now. And we're making more money over here with this. So this can be something that we use to help, you know, put in, like we're having a brother come in and changing all of our light fixtures over to LED. We're moving up to the 20th century, boys. You're gonna be able to see in our lodge pretty soon. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to all of our sconce lighting is going to be changed over to LED lights. But that's an expense that the lodge could front if they wanted to, because this brother's cutting us a great deal, but because we have that other organization that takes care of our building. But for Haltom Riverside, if they decided to do that, or if Granbury decided to do that, or if Grapevine decided to do that, you know, that's going to come out of lodge funds. That's going to come out of their ops account, unless they have a building maintenance and restoration account. But it's all a matter of how you separate out your dues.
Yep. You got to find your baseline.
You got to. But sometimes a PowerPoint will get you the peace and harmony you so much seek, even if you're not a fan of them, Grant.
Yep. And when you decide it's time to start, that dues need to be raised, don't bring that up in a meeting. Bring that up at the dinner table. Sit down with those old past masters and start talking to them about it. Hear what kind of rebuttals they have. Probably not going to convince them at that time. Go home, do your research, and then try again with paper, something that you can hand to them and say, hey, this is where we're at. What's your suggestion? They've got two options: to, you know, see the proof, or to just let that thing run into the ground. And I think 90 to 95% of past masters would say, hey, we got to do something. Let's put together a plan. May not be what you wanted, but at least you're heading in the right direction.
Well, it's one of those topics we could probably go on about for several more hours.
Days.
Guys, we've hit some good points, and you know, I'm sure we ruffled some feathers, and I'm sure we agreed with some folks, and Some folks may disagree, but that's the nature of this type of discussion. So appreciate it, guys. That was a good one.
Yeah.
So, I know we're ready for events, but one last thing I want guys to, every lodge should have a social media committee put together. Those are the guys that post Facebook, especially in the 64th district. Start getting active so we can get out and visit. We talked about it tonight. We're impulsive. Make the post.
All right, brothers. So what about closing thoughts on this episode?
So I'll make mine short and sweet. Here's the thing. Take control of your lodge. Don't expect the easy way out. Be ready to do the homework. This is all an investment. You are making yourself better. So get outside your comfort zone and make those improvements that need to be made to make your lodge better. Whether it's dues or anything, that the same principles can be applied to any problem. Degree fees, dues, you name it. It's right there. So take control. It's your lodge. Next.
Grant, how about you? Final thoughts on this episode?
Really just kind of agreeing with Rhit. Every lodge is going to be different. Every lodge is going to choose to do things their own way. And if you feel like you need change in your lodge, don't come to the table with opinions, because opinions involve emotion. Come to the table with facts and math if you want to talk about a budget and dues, and see where it goes. And keep in mind that you're never going to make everybody happy with it. Everyone from our lodge in this podcast was happy with our dues structure, but some folks weren't. So, just keep at it. Make sure that you're doing the right thing for building your lodge, and hopefully everyone does the right thing out there.
All right, Brother Matt, what about you? What's your take on this subject?
As I've been telling a lot of brothers recently, and I've been telling a lot of people recently, this is not your dad's masonry anymore. This is not your granddad's masonry. This is not your great-grandpappy's masonry. This is modern-day masonry, and unfortunately, in this world, in this day and age, money does make the world go round. There are bills to be paid. There are activities that you want to do, but it all costs money. So at the end, like Rhit said, it's an investment. You're investing in your experience. You're investing in your lodge. You're investing in the Grand Lodge of Texas, because every dollar you spend goes to helping keep masonry open for the future generations. So at the end of the day, it's all about keeping masonry thriving. And if it costs you a couple extra bucks, find the couple extra bucks. Don't go to McDonald's for breakfast that morning. Grab a granola bar, but do what needs to be done.
Yeah. Cancel your cable and get Netflix. You'll love yourself for it in the long run.
Yeah, then that's just general life advice. You
Yes,
should do
it
that
is.
anyway. But
Yeah.
I guess my 2-minute take on it, or sub 2-minute take on it, would be kind of riffing off of what Matt said. I would almost argue that this is our grandpappy's masonry and all of the generations in between and before. It's just that we always had those needs. I feel like we just have a better understanding of that now. But I'm not necessarily disagreeing or agreeing with that one. As far as my own take on that, I just wanted to say, when George Washington paid his dues, his degree fees, he paid 2 pounds and 3 shillings. Nowadays, that's about between $400 to $450 for degree fees. So if we look at that, most lodges have degree fees set similar to dues. Right? It's maybe not always the same, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. But George Washington paid, about $450 for his degree fees. So way back even before our grandpappies, people took masonry financially very seriously. So,
Yeah. Look at your dues in the 20s if your lodge was around then. Do the math.
Inflation
You'll be surprised.
is a hell of a thing.
Yeah,
So-
you'll be surprised.
This week's Fraternal Quote is from the first pillar of Lodge Epicurean, the pioneer European concept lodge of Australia. A high-quality lodge must be paid for, therefore dues need to be commensurate with this. Simple, instructional. You know,
That was so
Short and
quick.
sweet.
I was like, I was getting ready for the deep part, and I was like, wait, it's over.
Yep. It's just, hey, dues
Dynamite
need to
comes in
be-
small packages.
Yeah,
You
dues
gotta-
need to be high enough to cover your expenses. Go do that.
Hey,
It's
hey, Matt,
simple
thanks
and
for
good
joining us
advice.
tonight, man. That was fun. Glad to have you on.
Hey guys, I really appreciate it. It's been a blast. I've been following y'all since y'all relaunched, and I'm just glad that I was able to contribute my little outlook in masonry. This was a blast, and maybe a few episodes down the road we'll get somebody else from Web. I mean, we've got a bunch of good guys, but I invite anybody out there, come to Web Lodge, come see us. 7,000 Zuffelt. We're third Tuesday. We meet on Thursdays for floor school. Come at 6. We'll feed you real well. Then we'll have a meeting at 7. And if nothing else, you'll be semi-entertained by Brother Jeff Baldwin, our secretary.
God help us all.
All right, we ready to wrap it up?
Yes, sir.
So,
All right, so before we do, brothers, remember, actuary tables are your friend.
math.
I had to work that in one more time. So this is Rhit Moore signing off.
Grant Gates actuarially signing off.
Gabriel Jagush signing off.
Matt Fisher signing off.